Hello, mystics and philosophers. Last night I was reading the Freud-Jung letters, and I came across this letter that I wanted to read to you, part of it because as my last two videos were on the correspondence between Sabine Spielrein, Carl Jung, and Sigmund Freud, I finished that book, and now I'm back on to just the Jung-Freud correspondence. And I was talking about how interesting it is to get a glimpse into a field of practice and study that, doesn't yet have kind of ethical standards yet. And this letter from Carl Jung to Freud on the 11th of February 1910 actually talks about that and addresses it. And I thought it was so interesting. And I think it tells us a bit about Jung as well. As I'm learning about him, he seems particularly sensitive and thoughtful, and has this sort of progressive, liberal, creative kind of aspect about him. He truly seems like sort of a hippie, bohemian, freedom kind of loving person. And, not without, of course, his faults and consequences to that. But he talks here about a Dionysian kind of ethics, which, of course, then reminds us of Nietzsche's The Birth of Tragedy. And I'm also reading Coffin's biography of Nietzsche right now, so that's particularly in my mind. So apparently Jung was asked maybe to talk about ethics, and so this is what he's saying to Freud about that. I cannot muster a grain of courage to promote ethics in public, let alone from the psychoanalytical standpoint. At present, I am sitting so precariously on the fence between the Dionysian and the Apollonian that I wonder whether it might not be worthwhile to reintroduce a few of the older cultural stupidities, such as the monasteries. That is, I don't really know which is the lesser evil. Do you think this fraternity could have any practical use? Isn't it one of Forel's coalitions against stupidity and evil? And must we not love evil if we are to break away from the obsession with virtue that makes us sick and forbids us the joys of life? If a coalition is to have any ethical significance, it should never be an artificial one, but must be nourished by the deep instincts of the race. So I'm going to skip a bit, but he does ask, what sort of new myth does it hand out for us to live by? Only the wise are ethical from sheer intellectual presumption. The rest of us need the eternal truth of myth. You will see from this string of associations that the problem does not leave me simply apathetic and cold. The ethical problem of sexual freedom really is enormous and worth the sweat of all noble souls. But 2,000 years of Christianity can only be replaced by something equivalent. An ethical fraternity with its mythical nothing, not infused by any archaic infantile driving force, is a pure vacuum and can never evoke in man the slightest trace of that age-old animal power which drives the migrating bird across the sea and without which no irresistible mass movement can come into being. I imagine a far finer and more comprehensive task for, I think this is psychoanalytics, than alliance with an ethical fraternity. I think we must give it time to infiltrate into people from many centers, to revivify among intellectuals a feeling for symbol and myth, ever so gently to transform Christ back into the soothsaying God of the vine, which is Dionysus, right? Which he was. And in this way absorb those ecstatic, instinctual forces of Christianity for the one purpose of making the cult and the sacred myth what they once were, a drunken feast of joy, where man regained the ethos and holiness of an animal. That was the beauty and purpose of classical religion, which from God knows what temporary biological needs has turned into a misery institute. Yet what infinite rapture and wantonness lie dormant in our religion, waiting to be led back to their true destination. A genuine and proper ethical development cannot abandon Christianity, but must grow up within it, must bring to fruition its hymn of love, the agony and ecstasy over the dying and resurgent God, the mystic power of the wine, the awesome anthropology of the Last Supper. Only this ethical development can serve the vital forces of religion. But a syndicate of interest dies out after 10 years. So what do you think could be at stake for Jung here? Is he echoing Nietzsche's The Birth of Tragedy? He talks about the classical Greeks. He talks about not just aligning with Christianity, but allowing ourselves to grow up within it for the true essence of a life-giving, healthy, vibrant kind of religion, spirituality, morality, list of virtues. And I wonder also what was going on with Jung at this time, because he says, at present I am sitting so precariously on the fence between the Dionysian and the Apollonian. So he seems so full of emotion and tension and longing and resistance that, I'm not really sure. I don't know much because I haven't yet delved into the collaboration and relationship between Tony Wolff and Jung, but I do know that they met around this time of the letters, so I'm not sure. Let me know if you all have thoughts.